Get down! Now!
Welcome, guys, to another Top 5. How you doing, Rick?
Good, Jace. How are you? How are
Mate,
you guys? All right?
I'm doing well. This week, as the title says, Rick, we are delving deep into our Top 5 Arnold Schwarzenegger
Big
movies.
Arnie.
Big Arnold. Very vast career. Very long career that spans, believe it or not, 5 decades. 5 decades. So,
Wow.
Well, because you remember, here's a couple of trivia bits for you. He first appeared in a movie in 1970, which I believe was in 1972. Very early 70s, he appeared in Hercules. New York.
That's right.
By 1977, he had won a Golden Globe for Best New Male Star for his role in Pumping Iron. By 1987, he's got a
And he was in a previous movie. But
That's right.
Yeah.
By 1987, he's a mega huge star who has his Hollywood Walk of Fame star. Incredible career this guy has had, from being obviously Mr. Universe for years in a row, unstoppable in the bodybuilding world, and then become one of the biggest all-time Hollywood stars
Big
in
action
history.
star.
It's going to be great to delve into it, absolutely. And again, to set the rule, guys, these are our top 5. We're not trying to tell you this is your top 5.
No.
It's just our opinion. It's about the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that affected us
In
the
our
most and what
That's
we
right.
love.
That's right.
So in saying that, Rick, I think I'm up to
You
start.
are. Yeah,
I'm starting this week, so
you're
let's
starting
get it
right.
up with number 5.
Number 5, Jace. What do we got, buddy?
My number 5 goes all the way back to 1985, mate.
Oh, 85.
This is 85. This is, to me, probably a film that got watched more on video than probably most other Schwarzenegger films because I loved it so much. And I'm talking Commando.
Oh, yes. Alyssa Milano.
Alyssa Milano,
Yeah, wow.
absolutely. He's playing ex-military where, you know, all his teammates have been killed off by this rogue mercenary group. His daughter gets kidnapped, and Arnie does what Arnie needs to do to get his daughter back. Now, this film should not be taken seriously. And even at a young 12-year-old kid, I'm very hyper-aware of the campiness of this movie. But man, some of the one-liners in this movie and some of the action scenes, which go ridiculously over the top, especially in the third act. But the film is a lot of fun and it moves at a cracking pace.
Yeah.
Great villains. Great, kind of like I said, it's the first time Arnie's kind of... Well, it's probably his first biggest role after Conan the Barbarian. So it was good to see him really starting to hit his stride as an action genre master. And Commando, for me, high rewatching. Maybe hasn't aged as well as some other of these films.
Did it have like a record for the most kills at one stage?
I do believe so. That has been obviously knocked down a couple of times. But yeah, 100%. 100%. So
Crazy.
My number 5 is the 1985 movie Commando. Rick, yours.
Right, my number 5, Jace, we've actually touched on it at the beginning intro. Yep. So I'm going to be talking about Pumping Iron, 1977. So this movie it's obviously a documentary, but it wasn't actually filmed for Arnie, believe it or not. Arnie did an actual movie prior to that in 1976, Stay Hungry, with Jeff Bridges and Sally Field. He was actually acting in that movie. This is more so a documentary on the world of Mr. Olympia and bodybuilding itself. Lou Ferrigno was in the movie, or in the documentary. When I saw this, I was quite young, I wasn't a teenager, so I was in that realm, like, oh yeah, I gotta go to the gym, I gotta do this, gotta do that. And I watched this documentary, and it just blew me away. It really blew me away. To see what Arnie actually went through, and it revolves around that his personality actually shined through this that much that this was the base for him to get chosen for Conan the Barbarian. They actually saw his physique and saw everything that his personality shone out, and then he went forward and did Conan after this. So this pretty much helped his career immensely. So fantastic documentary, and it's so much that you can learn from this, and then what these guys go through.
Pot in it.
Yeah, and he was a young Arnie back then, so very different to what he is now. But yeah, if you've got to get on it. If you ever get a chance to watch it, definitely Pumping Iron. And it still get played across all these gyms like around the world. It's just a phenomenal documentary. So that's mine. Number 5, Jace.
Well, let's start moving into number 4.
What have you got
now,
number 4?
Number 4 takes us back to 94. And I'm talking his third reteaming with James Cameron.
Yes.
And that is True Lies.
Nice.
True Lies. Now, what a kind of a parody in a way. That's how it's a homage to great spy movies, to James Bond, to any kind of action adventure hero. This is James Cameron's take on it. But most people think this is a James Cameron written and directed film.
No.
He did direct it, but it's actually based off a French film, which is 1990's one, Le Totalaire. I'm not
That was a huge movie. That was a big movie.
But they obviously repurposed it for the US, and you are right, Rick, it became a smash phenomenon. A third of the box office for that year. Grossing, and this is 1994's time, grossing close to $400 million internationally, which would be over the billion mark in today's kind of standard. So, an incredibly successful film. And the reason I believe it's successful, because it's a damn fun movie.
It is.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of comedy. I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's probably best acting performance by this stage. I really think he's got his line deliveries right. He oozes a lot of charisma, and he's very funny in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, backed by a stellar cast of Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Arnold playing probably his only best known film, but wonderful job as the sidekick, to Charlton Heston, which is in the movie, like Hollywood legend. But it's great. It's a typical... No, it's not typical. It's a beautiful homage to those great action-adventure films. Good villains, good one-liners, interesting plot, and all backed by the expert direction of James Cameron. This film has a high rewatchability factor, which I know personally because I've probably watched it 60 times. Absolutely love True Lies. In a way, I struggled with this one, Rick. I thought maybe it could have jumped a little bit higher because I do love this film so much. But the hard thing about this list, Rick, is he's done some amazing films.
Of course, oh yeah, he has.
And True Lies is definitely one of them. That's my number 4. What's your number 4,
My
Rick?
number 4, Jace, we're going back to 1987.
1987?
1987, Jesse Ventura.
Oh
It's
my.
not the movie you think we're going to be talking about.
I know the movie, Rick.
Richard Dawson plays the bad guy. We are talking about The Running Man.
I'm thinking about a lot of spandex, right?
Yes. I don't know. I like you, Jace. I just thrashed this movie when I was younger. It was just constantly playing. I don't know what it was about this movie.
It was a high concept movie at its time.
Yeah, you know, because of the whole, reality TV. You know, back then, that's reality TV, and then you look at reality TV
Well,
now.
that term didn't exist back then.
No, that's right.
Them foretelling what
This
could
is
potentially be entertainment in the future.
And look at it now.
Right.
So there you go. But, I think it still holds up. I like it as I bought the special edition on DVD, and it's great. Fantastic. Love it. But, a bit of trivia to it. Christopher Reeve and Dolph Lundgren were actually considered for the role. For Arnie. Can you imagine that? So, lucky Arnie actually got the role. But yeah, like I said, it's just one of those movies I constantly play on and on. And I still watch it today. I reckon I watched it probably a couple of months ago. I actually watched it, pulled it out. So yeah, love it.
It visually is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
Like, it's got the 80s look, but it is a great film.
Yeah.
Great film.
That's my number 4, Jace.
Alright, mate, let's move on to my number 3 now. And number 3, what can you say? We're getting into the nitty gritty of great Arnold Schwarzenegger films, and this one has to be up there. A very influential film for me back in 1982, which to me is one of the greatest years in cinema of all time. Conan the Barbarian. Yes, Conan the Barbarian. John Milius directed, Arnold Schwarzenegger's biggest role to that date. I mean, this was his chance to really stand out. And what they made was an incredible fantasy film that launched an entire genre of sandals and sorcerers movies in those periods. Conan the Barbarian, I mean, like, Arnold doesn't have a lot of dialogue in this film at all.
No.
But it's his presence, and it's the plot, it's the villain, James L. Jones. It's the, the fantasy element. And obviously, if you watch this movie today, it's still brilliant. Things date a little bit over time. Some of the special effects are really cheesy. But you look beyond that, it's a film that still holds up today. It's been the best iteration of Conan they've ever put on cinema. I mean, no offense to Momoa. Or no offense to Conan the Destroyer, which is a very PG version of Conan. But Conan the Barbarian, which was, remember, written by Oliver Stone and directed by John Milius. And John Milius, if you guys don't know, was one of the prestige directors of the 70s and early 80s. I mean, he certainly was in that same level as a Martin Scorsese, and George Lucas, Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola. He was at that level. And certainly his directing skills are on display here. And the reason I'm bringing him up so much is because he's the one who was able to put this all together. Remember, Arnold is not a great actor at this point.
No.
And the subject matter is very kind of fantasy-driven and can come off really cheesy. And he managed to add a lot of depth and seriousness and soul to the movie, which now, as we know, Conan is revered as a cinema classic. And for me, oh my, how many times will I have watched this? Countless. I love Conan the Barbarian. That is my number 3. What's yours, Rick?
Well, you've just summed it all up, Jace. We're on the same page,
we're
buddy.
on the same page. It's happened every
Conan,
time.
Conan.
The Barbarian.
Well, I mean, what can I say that Jace hasn't already said? This is an absolute masterpiece. This is what actually started. And I was watching a bit of a documentary that Arnie did, and he was explaining some of his major characters that he did, and he was talking about Conan and what he went through when he was doing Conan, because no one had the physique that he had back then. He did all the stunts himself, so he took a punishment to make this movie. He said he was falling off. He injured himself when he fell off the horse and hit himself on a rock and this, that. He took a lot for this, and this, like Jay said, this branched his career. This is what made him, and this movie is just phenomenal. It's over 2 hours long, which is just, and James Earl Jones, and there's some scenes in this that, there's so many scenes, memorable scenes, but, that scene when he's, fighting the snake, which is, unbelievable. And like I said, they do date a little bit, but it still looks good for its time, and it had the blood and gore, and had a bit of nudity in it and everything else, but just phenomenal. Masterpiece, Jay. So, yeah.
Oh, man,
that's my number 3, mate.
In the first 5 minutes, his father gets killed by dogs and his mother's decapitated.
Yeah, and he's holding his mum's hand while she's... it's just...
With the sword that his father made, talking about the riddle of steel. Oh, amazing. Amazing film. So, we're on the same page here, but are we on the same page for number 2, Rick? Now, let's do that. All right, 1990. This film, number 2, I really struggled with it. And for me to put this film up that high, it means a lot to me, this movie. I'm talking about Total Recall.
Nice.
The original Total Recall. Not the Colin Farrell remake. Bit of a misstep there. But obviously, the original Paul Verhoeven, Arnold Schwarzenegger starrer. What a film that come out. I'm 16, 17 the time this movie comes out. And, man, I was the perfect demographic for this film. I remember sitting in the cinema and those bombastic score starts playing and you see those really cool title sequences, and then you're into the movie straight away and you see him on Mars and his head split. And it's non-stop. This movie moves at a cracking pace. And what a fun little high concept plot they've got going there. Did he really go to Mars? Is this part of the memories that he's being implanted? We don't know. And so as the audience, we're uncovering the mystery along with the main character. And it's wonderfully paced. It's ridiculous and campy, but it is just so highly entertaining. In 1990, this was probably top of the tree in sci-fi. Yep. This was it, Yep. And how many quotable lines do we get from this movie? So, welcome to JCat. 2 weeks. There's just so much is happening. Girl with 3 boobs.
That's it.
This is so much Quarto. There's Sharon Stone, by the way. Absolutely phenomenal in this film, and actually was a key movie for her to put her in the higher up the Hollywood chain, so to speak, and it obviously helped her lead her towards to get her career-defining role in Basic Instinct under the same director. But Total Recall, an absolute classic. Arnold Schwarzenegger is at his prime here, playing an action hero. By this, he's done 7, 8, 9 movies. Yeah. I mean, he is going full tilt. He knows what he's doing. And his acting is at a decent standard by this, you know. I mean, certainly, yeah. Total Recall, a film that, I mean, I probably own 3 or 4 different versions of it. I adore it that much.
Yeah.
Right? We never speak of the remake, but this film itself. My number 2, Rick. Your number 2.
My number 2. Well, Jace, we're not on the same page.
Okay, that's good.
On that, which is good. Who said sequels aren't any good?
Okay.
Well, I'm taking you back to 1991.
Okay.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
What can you say? This is the ultimate sequel, I reckon, in my opinion. It is dark, it's mean, and it's a tough movie. You know, you get another Terminator that comes back. Robert Patrick comes back to the future and is programmed to kill John Connor. And then you got Arnie, who in the first movie was trying to kill Sarah Connor, his mum and all that, and now he's the protector. So they've spun that around. But the thing that actually got me when I was younger, when I saw this at the cinemas, it just blew my mind. Like a lot of people out there, when you go to the cinema and you see those effects, because there was nothing like that at the time, and James Cameron brought that to the big screen. And God, man, some of those scenes, I was just like, wow, how do they do this? Like, you know, the technology for that, and it's just it's an incredible movie. What can I say? And I think it still holds to this day as one of the greatest sequels to. Yeah,
it does
in the Terminator franchise. It definitely. It spawned obviously a lot of other movies, but this is the one for me. So that's my number 2, Jace.
All right, it's okay. It's time to move on to number 1.
Whoa, this is going to be interesting.
And Rick, you know, we've sunk up again. Well, we haven't sunk up because my number 1's your number 2. And
wow, okay. I thought we were going to sink with
Judgment Day.
There you go.
Is without question my number 1 favourite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie of all time. This is, to this day, arguably the greatest action film ever made. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like you said, this time is not playing the antagonist, he's playing the protagonist. So they flipped the switch. I mean, you got to think about the Terminator, which came out in 1984, is this really mean, dark, action, gritty, sci-fi drama, and a small film. And then they take that concept and he just opens it right up. And why it works so well is, yeah, you flipped Arnie, so we get more. I don't think Arnie says much more than he did in the first one. He's very quiet. But it's his presence on every frame of this film is felt. And he's just James Cameron's at his prime. It's probably James Cameron's greatest film of all time as well, is Terminator 2. Because it moves at such a cracking pace. And you know, it's just the inclusion of making it a bit more accessible to the audience was a brilliant concept. And you spoke about the special effects. The only other time I'd seen special effects even remotely close to what he was pulling off was in his previous film, The Abyss, where he'd done a CGI water tentacle. But this time, we've got the T-1000 with full CGI chroming effect, which is just, like you said, for the time, unheard of. Backed up with an awesome soundtrack, an actor in his absolute prime, kicking absolute butt. I mean, what a great intro for Arnold in this sequel, is literally walking into that bar. And that fight scene, straight away. I mean, who didn't cringe when that guy was on the hot plates? Like, and the film just has an amazing legacy. That film has so much of a powerful legacy. They've attempted 4 times after Terminator 2 to recapture that magic. 4 times, Rick, and never been able to do it. Never been able to do it. Terminator 2 is my favourite Arnold Schwarzenegger film of all time, Rick.
There you go.
So, if Terminator 2 is yours, what is your number 1, Rick?
My number 1 is 1987's Predator. I love this movie. I was in primary school when I saw this, and I just hammered this movie so much. I enjoy this movie so much. Me and my friends actually went out and played in like a creek, and we were pretending to be Predator and all the rest of it. That's how much this movie influenced me. So good. I mean, what can you say? You had Carl Weathers, you had Bill Duke, Jesse Ventura again, and Shane Black. You know, I think at this stage, for me, I think this was probably Arnie's best acting role at this point. I think he got his acting really, really well at this point. Let's not forget, obviously, all the other actors around him, which, you know, made this movie such presence and what it was. You know, the special effects were simple at its time, but they were very, very effective. And not seeing the actual villain itself, the Predator, until right to the end.
Yeah, I think you're about halfway through the second
act. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of builds that suspense up. When you fully see, I mean, you see him, but you don't fully see him under the mask and whatever. And when he took that friggin' mask off, my God, how good and freaking scary that he looked. Just amazing. Yeah, I just absolutely love this movie. The rest of the movies that followed on from it, not so much. But, you know, it branched on to, you know.
I love
But you like number 2, yeah?
I love it.
Yeah, different concept.
Yeah, that's why I love it. I actually think it's as good as the first one. Predator, mate, I don't know why that didn't make my top 5, but...
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be
on the
in
same
there.
page. I think we normally do not talk about them, but we did have a brief conversation.
We did.
We looked at each other and went, we got the same number 1, right? Yeah. And so he's thinking Predator,
I thought we had
right?
it. I thought he had Predator.
Terminator 2, right?
But then Terminator came.
So there you go.
But
look,
yeah,
incredible film. I mean, it is absolutely exceptional movie, Predator, and a great choice for your number 1, Rick. And there we go, guys.
That's what it's about.
We've smashed it through. That's our top 5. That's Rick's top 5. That's my top 5. What is your top 5? Do you agree with us? Do you think we're crazy? Do you think Arnold is someone that's not even worth doing a top 5 of? Do you have any suggestions? We're going to want to know this stuff, but before we do
that's right, before. What do we got in 2 weeks, Jay?
For next week, and we're going to go for next show, and we're going to go a little bit different this time, Rick. We're going to go start jumping in the world of TV.
Oh, nice.
And this category is going to be a tough one, because it's going to be our top 5 TV shows of the 1990s.
Nice, big, huge
decade, full decade, and you know, once your brain starts thinking about what was on TV around that time,
geez,
know that we've got a very difficult task ahead of us. Personally, to decide what our top 5 TV shows were. So
it's gonna be good,
guys. We want to know what you thought. Rick, how do they let us know?
Guys, all you need to do is give us a comment down below for the video. Also, give us one of these a thumbs up. We'd really, really appreciate it. If you have subscribed to our channel, thank you so much for your support. If you haven't, just hit that subscribe button for us. Follow us all on our social media sites and just hit that notification bell. Easy and simple as that, guys.
See you soon.
See ya.
Put the cookie down! Now!